EOTalks, Eastern Oregon's very own talk show, only here on EO Alive.
Hey, Eastern Oregon, thank you for jumping in with us today. And again, this is another CHD medication-assisted treatment program update, and I'm joined today with Corey and Nikki. Hey, thanks you guys for jumping in today. And we've talked quite a bit here and there about the program, and we've kind of outlined it and broke it down. And it's just a very holistic program. And today we're going back a little bit to the nuts and bolts of what someone might experience when they first make the phone call, they begin to enter into the program. And so, Corey, why don't you start? Take it away and tell us kind of what someone would experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first step in order to get into the MAT team is kind of that intro assessment interview that you'll do with kind of our intake team here at CHD and also our MAT team coordinator, Jamie. This can take anywhere from an hour to about 2.5 hours, depending on if they're going to be new clients of CHD or if they're a past client and we have all of their information as well. So it's somewhat of a good process where a lot of questions will be asked to the client about their usage, their, any past problems they've had. And this is also a great time for any clients to ask about the medication assisted treatment team and the actual process that goes around, because you'll be talking with the MAT team coordinator at that point. So after that is completed, the MAT medical assistant, who we've had on EO Alive before, named Lindsay Winburn, we'll schedule an appointment with our MAT team prescriber named Dale. And while that's being completed and paperwork is being signed, they will then meet with our MAT nurse, which we have here, Nikki Billman. And we have Nikki on here today because she's going to explain kind of the next step after the intake process and the scheduling process, which is the kind of the induction process, if you will. Oh, you are muted, Brent.
So thank you. And just to back up a little bit, so the people that are calling and that enter into this program are people that they recognize that they have some kind of a drug addiction program or drug addiction problem. And the MAT program is specifically to help those that are addicted to opioids or heroin. And so they know that they have a problem. And part of the process is saying, okay, this is affecting my life or my employment or whatever it might be, to the point to where I need some help. And so, and the program centers around the medication that will help them to be safer and to be able to cope. And so then that's what the induction process is. So Nikki, with that little preview, why don't you take over and maybe explain that some more and kind of what does someone do? What happens from that process?
Okay, so usually it is scheduled by Lindsay, our medical assistant, and they come in full-blown withdrawal. So they have to have been off of opioids for 24, but preferably 48 hours. And we assess that withdrawal with something called a COWS assessment, which stands for Clinical Opioid Withdrawal Scale. And this kind of quantifies their symptoms of withdrawal. So their vitals will be a certain score, if they're sweating, if they're shaking, if they're puking, yawning, a lot of things that you wouldn't think go with withdrawal. And once we have that initial starting number, assuming that they are in adequate withdrawal, we start the actual induction process. So I will give them 1 strip of Suboxone. They will take it, and I will stay with them for the first half an hour, just monitoring, making sure they don't go into something called precipitated withdrawal, which I'll cover in a second. And I will continue to assess their COWS score. After a half an hour, I will make sure they're okay, and I can step out of the room and just let them hang out for the next half an hour. After we've reached an hour mark, I go back in, do another COWS assessment, monitor. Basically, it's just this continuation until we get that score down and their cravings controlled and that they feel safe to leave and not use. And once that dose is reached, I communicate with the prescriber and I let them know what their dose is, and a prescription is written for usually a week. And then I stay in contact with them pretty much daily, making sure they're okay, making sure it's not too much. And then we continue on with the rest of the program.
And so how is Suboxone given? You said a strip or a drip. I'm trying to, yeah. So explain what is that? How is it dosed out?
So usually Suboxone is in a dissolvable strip, and it's kind of like this big, and it goes underneath their tongue and dissolves in their mouth straight into their mucous membranes.
Okay.
And that gives it the ability to act faster, basically. It does come in pill form as well, but I think that's just straight buprenorphine, which is part of what Suboxone is. But usually we prefer to do strips.
Okay, so let me kind of summarize what it is that I think you said. So then once they've done the paperwork, they've said, okay, like I want to do this. I'm sure there's a commitment process, and I mean this is not a casual thing. Then they have to stop using for at least 24 to 48 hours. So then when they come in to see you, they're really at the height of their craving. They actively need something. I mean, and so then you have do a measurement of that. And so then through this process, giving them Suboxone and watching their withdrawal symptoms, then you figure out a dosage that helps them. Does it, and when they get that, does it alleviate the withdrawals completely? I mean, what is their experience, or what do they tell you is their experience during that time?
So for a lot of people, like one strip doesn't do much, but when you've reached an adequate dosing, it will control your withdrawal, so you won't have any withdrawal symptoms, is our hope. And you won't have any cravings to use because it will fill those opioid receptors in your brain, and you won't have that biophysical drive to use.
Now, can you give someone too much? I mean, is that of concern? And then how would you know if the dosage was too high that you were giving them?
So that's part of the reason I stay in contact with them, because obviously on the day of induction, it's crazy and they're very miserable. And maybe the next day they take that dose and they feel like, wow, that was too much. And what too much feels like is they're really sedated. Sometimes they might feel like they're going to vomit. They're very nauseous. A headache is one of the side effects. And so that's why I communicate with them and see. And sometimes the dose is adequate, but it needs to be split into like a dose in the morning and a dose in the evening, or something in that form.
So you're just adjusting and communicating and talking so that there's some kind of a normal process. I mean, they feel normal. They're not in active withdrawals in some way or another.
That's our hope. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And I know I've asked this question before, but what are withdrawals? I mean, they must be miserable. I mean, because the withdrawals are what's actively pushing them in their addiction. What is that like? What do people experience when they go through that?
So the symptoms I'm looking for are the ones that kind of across the board medical professionals have learned are symptoms of withdrawal. But they include an elevated pulse rate, sweating, sometimes profuse sweating, tremors, goosebumps, yawning, a fever, vomiting. They get really achy, and it hurts. It's very painful. A runny nose. They feel like crap.
Huh. And when they when they're in the process of using and they're taking an opioid or whatever it might be to get away from those withdrawals, is there a high associated, or do just the withdrawals go away?
Just the withdrawals go away, because there's that
ahead.
protective factor of naloxone in Suboxone that protects you from getting high.
Okay, so but when they're using an illegal drug, there is a high aspect to it. And so it's not just that you stop feeling crappy and the withdrawals go away. There is a little bit of a, I can conquer the world. I'm just trying to get my head around what someone might feel when they're there in that place.
When they're actively using?
Correct, yeah, and they're high.
Opioids have a tendency, they are kind of sedating, and they also can give a euphoric feeling. So they feel, like you said, on top of the world. They feel good. It also numbs any emotion you might have, especially negative emotion, fear, sadness, anger, and it basically makes it so none of that matters.
Okay, so then they have to be prepared, and that's part of the beginning process. When you guys introduce them into the program, they have to be prepared for the fact that they're giving up being high in the future. I mean, am I expressing that well enough?
Yeah. And that's part of the reason we have all these other prongs to the system. So we have peers that can help when they're struggling with different aspects. We have the therapists that will see them and help them build life skills.
Sure.
And coping mechanisms that they used to use the drug for.
Okay. All right. And so then, and I think you've mentioned before that regular drug test is a part of the program. So then once they've been assessed, once they're giving a dosage, then they have to submit to drug test on a normal basis to know that, for you guys to know that they're only taking the Suboxone. Is that correct?
They have to come in. We have a tier system. So on tier 1, which is where you start, you're supposed to come in randomly for weekly urine drug screens. And this is not only to show that they're not using other substances, but to make sure that they are taking their Suboxone and not diverting it. Okay.
And diverting meaning what? Like?
So Suboxone has some street value because it controls withdrawal.
Oh, okay.
So we have to make sure that they're not selling it.
Okay. So, all righty. Or white knuckling it, or like, I don't need it all. Or so I'm going to, yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there are folks like that too. So, well, so what's next? And I don't know, whichever one of you want to answer. Where does it go after this beginning process?
I can take that, Corey, if you want. Okay, so after they're inducted and we've gotten their dose, they're to have weekly appointments with the prescriber, so with Dale, just to check on the dosing, make sure that they're still doing well, and to change anything. And they are supposed to have weekly appointments with the therapist to build those coping mechanisms, to make sure that they're safe. And then they see me weekly for a urine drug screen. And that goes on. And once they show that they're capable of doing that and they've met all those requirements, they move up a tier. So they go up to tier 2, and then all of those things start happening every other week. So they get 2 weeks. And then once they show that that's been met, another tier, and it's a month. So that eventually, it's not an every week thing. They have to come in, and it's all this work. That work pays off in the longevity of that they don't have to come in here every week.
So they feel like they're accomplishing something. They feel like there is there's a process by where they feel like, okay, I'm getting better, or at least I'm progressing in the program. So, and Corey, why don't you talk for a minute about the other wraparound services that you call the other complications that someone might experience, and what the MAP program does in those areas?
Absolutely. Yeah. MAT isn't just, the medication, assisted treatment in itself. There's quite a few people on the team that provide services to the clients that need it. We have case managers that can help with really anything they need. We have peers that can help support them in this process. We have prescribers. We have the medical assistants. There is a lot. There's a lot of services that clients can utilize in this program. And we have our number there on the bottom left there, 541-562-HOPE. That is our HOPE line. So for anyone watching, if you have any questions, if you want to reach out and say you know of somebody who could use this information, please give us a call with that number right there. We have a full dedicated team looking to help anyone suffering from opioid use disorder, as well as check out our website, please, www.chdinc.org/addictions. You can browse through our websites. You can find information there. You can see who's on the team and the services we can provide. But we are here to help the community. And this is a phenomenal team that is ready to help anyone who is asking for our help.
So since we've started this, I mean, are you seeing some people come in? I haven't asked that question. We've been actively involved in helping you get the word out. Is it working? Are you seeing some people call the number? And I don't know, talk a little bit about that, would you?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't have the data right in front of me. I do know though for sure that right after our big event that we had, our Narcan drive-through giveaway, we had a drastically increased amount of calls on our Hope line. So we are reaching out to the community, and we are getting the information out, and through various social media posts, through EO Live, through our billboard that we have, radio ads. I mean, we really are trying our best to get kind of this county a little bit more educated on this epidemic that we're having.
That's great. All right. Well, thanks. Well, anything else that we need to touch on before we take off?
I would just remind everyone that if they need Narcan, to let us know. Zero judgment. You can get some Narcan, and we'd be happy to get it to you.
That's right. And I have a pack here sitting behind me and have one at home. And I've described them as kind of a fire extinguisher of drug overdose a little bit, so that you just never know when you might, we just don't know when you might run into someone that whose life could be saved by Narcan. So awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for jumping in with me today and being a part of this. See if I can find the right thing here. And this is the medication assisted treatment program that is put on by CHD here. And I would encourage you folks, if there's someone out there, or you know someone who is struggling with opioid addiction or any addiction whatsoever, then there is a pathway where CHD can either help you directly or route you to the place where you can get some help. So thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time right here.